Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Dribble Drive podcast. Your hosts, Austin Render, Dalton Shetler, with you on a Wednesday edition of the Dribble Drive, September 3rd. As we know, coaches are busy people, so we go when they can go, Dalton, and we're excited. Katie Gearlds is going to join us on the show here today. Dalton, how are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Hey, it's football season, which means we're closer to basketball season, so we're getting there. This is episode 62 of the Dribble Drive. If you are new, welcome. We appreciate you downloading, subscribing, however it was that you found made your way here to the podcast. Folks at home, if you are wanting a challenge, here's your challenge for the remaining 9 fan bases that we still have to preview, including today's with Purdue. Iowa has shattered all of everybody's numbers in terms of streaming on our YouTube channel. 2.4 thousand people
What
have
else do you
streamed.
expect when you include Iowa?
Yeah, that's how many people have streamed the Iowa preview with Jan Jensen. So the remaining 9 teams that we still have to preview, that's your number to get to right now. And the teams who we've already previewed, you can go back and add to your numbers too if you want to go and
Wait,
watch your episodes. We have already previewed Maryland, Nebraska, USC, Illinois, Penn State, Michigan State, Oregon, Minnesota, and as I mentioned, Iowa. The last 5 have had coaches on, and they've been just terrific. So go back and listen to those. We're halfway through this preview season. We're also part of the Back Home Network YouTube channel. That's where you can find all of our videos for the podcast, and then on Apple and Spotify podcasts. And you can go on X and follow Dribble Drive WBB to stay up to date on all the latest, because yes, we do try for Tuesday noon releases. That's what we'll get back to during the season. But with coach availability, sometimes we got to be flexible. So this is another one of those weeks where we're going to move it into this Wednesday night slot. We'll hope and aim to be back to Tuesday next week with whomever it is that we are joined by. Dalton, it's real quickly before we jump into Purdue preview here. We missed it last week. We should have submitted a college football prediction.
okay.
Who's winning the Big Ten, Dalton?
Uh, at this point, well, honestly, it almost helps to have had 1 week under the
Yeah,
belt.
we can
Uh,
cheat now. We saw what some of these teams looked like.
was very impressed with Ohio State's defense, and I think you
Mhm.
saw enough from Julian Say there. I might lean Ohio State. I know Penn State was the maybe favorite by some, but I think Ohio State just has so many playmakers where if you feel good about saying getting it to Jeremiah Smith and others, and with how that defense looked, I think it's got to be the Buckeyes this year, which they didn't win it last year. They only won the national title. They didn't win the Big Ten title. So
They were
go
fourth.
figure.
They were fourth in the Big Ten last year. As my coach Kurt Cinetti likes to remind people, that Indiana finished higher than the Buckeyes last year. But when you look at Penn State, it's like, okay, I mean, I kind of need to see it before I totally buy in. They've got to go
Oh yeah.
to the horseshoe to win this thing. And then even if they were to play again in the Big Ten title game, it's in Indy. That would be a big Buckeye crowd. So I think Ohio State's got to be the favorite right now. Your Spartans aiming to get back to bowl eligibility this year. Got Boston College this week. Fun one there. Dalton's going to be doing some broadcasting for that. So everybody go listen to the Spartan Radio Network to catch Dalton this weekend doing Michigan State Boston College. Give us the preview.
This one is actually a really big and exciting one, Austin, because Michigan State got back to a little bit of its identity. When you think of Michigan State at its best, it's running the football.
Mhm.
And in this game, the win over Western Michigan, they had 103 rushing yards from just Mekhi Frazier. They averaged 7.5 yards a carry with him. They averaged 7.5 yards a carry with Brandon Tolis as well, who had 50 some of his own. And that kind of opened things up. They have so many playmakers in the passing game. The defense genuinely pitched a shutout, Austin. Western Michigan scored 6 points, but it was a pick six. I mean,
Yeah.
Western's offense never got to the red zone. So Michigan State's defense was lights out. Other side, and I'll be quick because we'll get to women's basketball. Dylan Lonergan transfers from Alabama to become the Boston College quarterback. He had a connection with Bill O'Brien there in Tuscaloosa. This is an extremely talented quarterback, and right now BC is number one in the country for passing offense. Threw for 458 passing yards, I think, in the week one win over Fordham. And they have, as Pete Thamel is labeling it, maybe the best secondary in the entire ACC. So this is a big matchup under the lights between Michigan State and Boston College.
Saturday night?
Saturday night.
Okay, Saturday night. There you go. Check Dalton out. That's our little football corner before we jump into some basketball here. Let's do that transition into the Purdue Boilermakers, our 10th team to preview here in this Big Ten women's basketball preview season. Again, these episodes are going to take you all the way up until the start of the season. So our weekly episodes will continue with previews. We're going to get every team in. Dalton, this Purdue team did not have a great season last year. And ultimately, if you look at it, the last 2 years have not been great for Katie Gearlds and company after that surprise NCAA tournament appearance in her first season. Now she's trying to figure out how to get back there, and she's doing it with the portal. This is a totally new team, Dalton. They have really hammered the transfer portal. There's not a ton coming back in terms of high-level production. But honestly, when you looked at last year's team, there wasn't a lot of consistent high-level production. You think about Rashunda Jones, probably the best and most consistent players off to Michigan State. Outside of that, they don't have a whole lot to bring back. So this is going to be kind of a fresh slate for Katie Gearlds and Purdue, and it's going to be a team that Purdue fans are going to have to learn on the fly who it is that they're watching.
Well, you're spot on, and let's go ahead and run through some of those transfer additions. And you've got them there at the bottom. Taylor Feldman comes in. Of course, the gaudy 16.5 points per game stat jumps off the page to you as she transfers in from Northern Arizona. Taylor Henderson transfers in from UNCW, averaged 12 a game. Nia Smith from UNCG at 11 points a game. Kiki Smith, Arkansas, over 10 points a game. Sage Stahl from Indiana State, 7.5 points per game. Tara Day from St. John's, 6 points per game, as Austin has on the video graphic, but just running through it for our audio audience as well. You're right. That is a complete reset for Katie Gearlds and this squad. They add in Avery Gordon, who is a top recruit in this class coming in to help things out there in the post. It's a guard-heavy squad. But one thing we've known about Katie Gearlds since she took the job at Purdue, and honestly, even if you go all the way back to her playing days at Purdue, this is a high-octane scoring mentality. That's what Katie Gearlds brings. Likes to bring the perimeter ball, likes to have the ability to light it up from downtown, to shoot the three. And with some of the points per game numbers, look, I don't know a ton more about these transfers than just what we see on the stat sheet, but the stat sheet does speak volumes. And you wonder if it translates to Katie Gearlds' system there in West Lafayette, what that could do for a Purdue team that, as you mentioned, ever since that surprise NCAA tournament appearance, we haven't quite seen them find that footing. It'll be interesting to see if this group can do that.
Yeah, you look at all those guards on, we don't have their positions on the graphic, but 5 of those 6 transfers are guards by trade. Sage Stahl of Indiana State is a forward. Of those highlighted returning players, Purrier and McCarthy are both forward, so they give you some depth in that position. And then among that freshman group, which includes Avery Gordon, Kiana Doustra, and Gila Karsh, again, if you're listening to us in podcast form, help you out. We do have a graphic up on the YouTube channel. Avery Gordon's a top 100 recruit, and she's a forward. So there is a little bit of forward depth there, but it's still trying to figure out where to go with that position. But you said it, a lot of talented guards. And again, scoring double digits doesn't happen on accident. There's 4 of these transfers that average double-digit points per game. The question is, for several of these players, can they bring it up to the Power 4 level? Can they bring it up to arguably the best conference in the country in the Big Ten? So that'll be the big question for Purdue. They just couldn't score last year, Dalton. They had one player, I think, get to 10 points per game. It might have ended at 9.9. It was not a high octane offense by any means. Yeah, it was Destiny Lombard 9.9 a game and Rashunda Jones 9.8. So nobody on this team averaged double figures last season. It felt like Kendall Purrier at times was their best player, and she didn't even start, but then she would go quiet in some games. And the consistency factor, Dalton, has to be better this year for Purdue.
Well, and I think a big part of it too was, I mean, you talked about Rashonda Jones, and of course, with her transferring to Michigan State, dug in and paid a lot of attention to what she was able to do. I think you had in her last year a really great, true point guard, somebody who could create plays for others. I think in large part, the problem was when you look at Purdue's team, they didn't have enough to create some of those different openings. So Rashonda looking to drive and kick, but defense isn't really coming off of the shooters or whatever, and you know what I mean, like there
Mm-hmm.
weren't enough windows for Purdue to be able to create offense, and you wonder with this talented slate of guards if they're able to create some more plays, and if they don't have somebody who can, with the ball in their hand, become a legitimate scoring threat. And it's clear again with Katie Gearlds' system, she likes the 3-point shot. And as Ian always puts in his game notes for Purdue women's basketball, because he's one of the best SIDs out there, talks about how Katie will always jab with them that they can't shoot as good as her, because Katie Gearlds was one of the best Purdue players ever. A matter of fact, was a McDonald's All-American in the game the same year LeBron James was a McDonald's All-American. So they had a 3-point shooting together back in that day and age. But that goes to show you a little bit of the inspiration for Katie Gearlds and what she sees with this Purdue system. The biggest question, and we just may not know until we get to the season, and we'll learn a little bit more with this conversation with Katie Gearlds, is does this new crop of transfers fit that bill? Are they able to make that happen and produce? It's why I'm so excited for the conversation. Just full transparency, Austin's holding down the fort.
Yep.
Without Austin, this podcast just isn't even possible. So I have to split here in a minute, but very interested to see what Austin and Katie Gearlds get into with this, because it is a big question.
Yeah, we were able to get Dalton in his crazy busy schedule here for a quick little preview. But yeah, that conversation that's coming up that I had with Katie Gearlds is just going to be me this week. But we had to get Dalton on here to give us some thoughts. So as one of the many cliches that my football coach Kurt Signetti likes to say, every season is a different living, breathing organism. So you never like nothing totally translates from one season to the other, especially with this Purdue team with how much is changing. But last year, a 63-point per game scoring team, they averaged less than 34 rebounds, which I believe was last, if not second to last, in the Big Ten. They shot the three ball at 32%, shot overall at 42%. Opponents shot the three ball at 34%, averaged 75 a game. So they struggled on both ends, and that's typically what happens when you have a 3-15 record in conference. They missed the Big Ten tournament, which
Hmm.
was the first year that was a possibility. They missed it. Penn State missed it. So that's one of those things and Northwestern missed it as well. And one of those things you had to get used to last year was, hey, not only are you playing for buys and double buys at the top, some of these teams are playing to make sure their seasons continue into Indianapolis in the end of the year. So for Purdue, it's so hard, Dalton, because it's not an easy league to rebuild in.
Right.
You saw it a little bit with the quick turnarounds of Purdue and Illinois 3 years ago. And then Michigan but Michigan wasn't a total rebuild. It was just a young team. We didn't totally know what we were going to see, and they were better than we thought. But we haven't yet seen it. That part of the Big Ten has been the struggle for these bottom teams to come up for air. You've got the Wisconsins, the Penn States, the Purdues, the Northwesterns that have, and the Rutgers that have really struggled. And I don't think that's necessarily a detriment to their team. I think every
Mhm.
coach will tell you, you have to prepare for every single Big Ten team with that same intensity, that same attention to detail. But when you have now the addition of 4 tournament teams to the league, plus a league that was already deep to begin with, where are you getting the wins if you're these teams toward the bottom of the conference? And that's where it's like, I don't think these teams are as bad as their records show, but it
Right.
is so hard to rebuild in this league, Dalton, because there's no freebies out there.
Well, and that's especially as I look at Big Ten sports kind of across the board. I look at volleyball and I think that the same
Yeah.
way a lot of times somebody comes into that league. What are you going to do? I mean, they have like four top 10 programs in the country. It's really hard to find footing and find a way to climb that ladder. And that's one of the issues in Big Ten women's basketball. When you're talking about nearly 13 teams being in the NCAA tournament, there was a clean dozen in the NCAA tournament. That's not a lot of room for the other squads to find ways to improve. But I will say this too, Austin, and maybe I'm just biased because I'm a huge Katie Gearlds fan. I am jealous that you get to spend some time with her here in a moment. And maybe it's because I'm partial to the small school route. And we've seen that in times. Personally, I did the small school route, elevated to where I became today. You look at Michigan State, Robin Freilich came from D2, climbed all the way up to where she is. Katie Gearlds was coaching in the NAIA not that long ago, and was elevated then back to the Purdue job. I'm a big believer in her and what she can do for Purdue basketball. But obviously we're a few years in here, and I think the biggest thing, and maybe we get the answer and maybe a solution with this transfer class, Austin, but they've just needed the talent to really be able to, I think, elevate that standard or meet that standard that Purdue wants to have for women's basketball. I believe in Katie Gearlds, and hopefully this transfer class has the talent to be able to get that done.
Yeah, and I'm with you there. And they scheduled a little bit lighter this year. If you remember last year, their schedule included Kentucky, Notre Dame,
Yeah.
and South Carolina, and an early Big Ten game with Maryland. So they were just beaten and bruised by the new year, by all these tough teams they played. They have a return trip to Kentucky in Lexington, but outside of that, no other Power Four schools. I think that's smart. You think about all the discussion in football about strength of schedule. I think in basketball, it's different, especially when you're in a conference like the Big Ten. You know you're going to get RPI opportunities home and away throughout the conference season. So you can get away with being a little bit more passive at the front end with a team of so much new for Katie Gearlds trying to figure out what do we have? Let's play a bunch of games at home. Let's play a bunch of games that we should be able to win and figure out what lineups work, who gels well with each other. And I think that's got to be the strategy for Purdue. The other part for these teams that the Penn States, who we've previewed already, if you want to go back and listen to that one, that was episode 57. Wisconsin, Northwestern, Rutgers, who are all coming up, and Purdue as well. You have to beat each other. You have to that's got to be the first goal. It's what we were saying when we did the Penn State preview was I think Penn State is the best setup of those five to be the leader of the bottom five and potentially start to crack upward into that top 13 that we saw last year. There was a pretty big drop off from 13 to 14 last year in the league. So if you're Purdue, you got to say to yourself, every game against Rutgers and Wisconsin and Penn State and Northwestern is vital. And they were pretty good in those last year. They won at Penn State in a huge game from Rashonda Jones. They beat Northwestern at home, and they beat Wisconsin at home, which was a big win. Now they lost at Rutgers, which proved to be the game that kept them out of the Big Ten tournament. So in order to rebuild, you've got to beat the teams in your food class. You have to beat those teams that are there with you, at least based on last year and the year before standings, before you can elevate yourself moving forward. So that to me feels like it's got to be the goal for Purdue.
Well, and you laid it out perfect, and I think you're spot on when you're talking about how does a team towards the bottom of a league that's as deep and as tough and historically dominant as Big Ten women's basketball is right now. For Purdue, look, there were five teams that weren't in the NCAA tournament discussion period, and for Purdue, they weren't at the top of that class last season. If they were, they would have been in Indianapolis for the Big Ten tournament. You're right. You've got to capitalize when you play against one another in that class. And I think honestly for Purdue, you've got to find a way to get to that Big Ten tournament this year. You've got to find a way to rise above some of those other teams in that tier. Once you do that, then I think you think about the next step of, okay, well, how do we catch 13 in that tier that's been above us, that's been in tournament discussions? But for Purdue, right now, it's got to be about beating those other squads, just like you said, and being the top of that tier, which also isn't easy. We had the Penn State preview not long ago with Carolyn Keeger.
Mm-hmm.
Penn State is in a position where they're looking to take that next step to fight the 13 team in the tier above. They feel like they're ready to go. When you look at Kiyomi McMiller, Merkel, they think they're ready to maybe take that step. So Purdue's got to find a way to get right into that mix. And I think that's the goal for this season.
Well, they're going to host Penn State. They're going to host Rutgers. They're going to go at Northwestern and at Wisconsin. So you certainly got to win those games at home. You got to, but they've also for Purdue, and I think they will be. This is a new team, but you got to be a little bit more competitive in some of these games as well. You look at some of these lopsided performances. They lost by 20 to Indiana. They lost by 50 to Ohio State. They had some moments there. They almost beat Nebraska, almost beat Maryland, but lost by 36 to Illinois, lost by 42 to USC, lost by almost 30 to Washington. So they've got to be better, especially at home. Getting beat by 25 plus at home is not something that Katie Gearlds will want to see again this year. So there's room for improvement for Purdue, and it's going to be a really interesting season to see how these transfers gel. And well, nobody's going to know that better. She certainly doesn't know it yet. It's still preseason, but Katie Gearlds is going to know better than Dalton and I are how this team is coming together. So I had a chance to catch up with her. Let's listen to that conversation now here on the Dribble Drive. And welcome back here to the Dribble Drive podcast. We are joined by Purdue head coach Katie Gearlds here on the back half of the episode. We did lose Dalton. He had to leave, but excited to have Coach join us. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great, Austin. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're going to take a minute here to pick your brain about the Purdue Boilermakers, a team that you guys obviously had that NCAA tournament trip a couple of seasons ago. The last 2 years, you've fallen short of the tournament. The coaches say you tend to, I think they say this, that you learn more in losses sometimes than you do in wins. What have you learned about yourself as a coach here over the last couple of seasons?
Yeah, a lot of self-reflection after the last 2 seasons, especially after this last season. Really wanted to kind of look in the mirror and recognize who I was and who I wanted to be as a basketball coach. I think there's a little bit more old school in me than what I've shown, and trying to find that and bring that back out. And I think we've got obviously a new team, but a hungry team that has welcomed that. I understand being a player's coach and all that stuff, but I grew up watching the Gene Katie, Bobby Knight era, and I think there's a little bit more of that in me than what I've shown, and I've got to find a way to bring that out for our ball club.
Last season, a unique season in the fact that it was the first year that there was the possibility of missing the Big Ten tournament. You guys were one of those teams. So as you kind of wrapped up last season and you had some conversations with your staff, what were some of those things that you kind of sat down and said, okay, we don't want to be in this position next year. How do we fix this moving forward?
Yeah, thought we needed to get longer. We needed to get more athletic, and we needed to get shot makers. And I thought we put ourselves in a pretty good spot in the post. Our 2 freshmen, Lana and KP, played a lot as freshmen at the 5 spot, and brought in another freshman this year at 6'7". So just wanted to get a little bit longer on the perimeter. Haven't really had somebody at the point guard position who could shoot the basketball. Even go back to Janae Terry when we played. Obviously, JT ran the point and could distribute like no other, but she wasn't a threat to score. So wanted to get a scoring point guard and then get a little bit longer and more athletic on the perimeter so we could play defensively the way I'd like to play.
Yeah, I want to run through some of these transfers that you've picked up, but I first want to talk about a couple of players you've got coming back. Kendall Purrier, Lana McCarthy, a couple of the bigs that have some experience now playing in the Big Ten. What can you ask of them now in year 2? What are the expectations for them?
Yeah, we asked them to grow up right away. There was no dipping their toe into the kiddie pool or anything. It was like, we're throwing you into the deep end, and you've got to learn how to swim. And a lot of tough moments for them, but a lot of learning. And there's no substitution for game reps. No matter how much you practice, there's no substitution for game reps. So even when we were losing, they were battling against Lauren Betts. They were battling against Kiki Iriafen. They battled against Marshall out there too. Like, you think about all the bigs in our league that they played against and got game reps against, and we've been able to do nothing but study that film, right, and work on their game. And here's what we can do differently. Here's where we had success, and both of them put, like, I just can't, the numbers, the hours, the time they spent working to get ready, and get better. To obviously we got a couple months before we play, but I think their transformation, their freshman to sophomore jump is going to be huge.
Let's dive into some of those transfers and kind of let the Purdue fans know just exactly the players that you've picked up here in the portal. Let's start with Taylor Feldman. She's the leading scorer of the crop that you brought in, coming over from Northern Arizona. What stood out to you about her game?
Yeah, honestly, I remember watching her live against Arizona in the WBIT, and when she went in the portal, Mark texted me, and he was like, "Hey, have you watched this kid? Tell me what you think." I was like, "I know who that is. I watched her beat Arizona like pretty much by herself." And she had played against some high competition and put up great numbers, but he talked about finding a scoring point guard, someone who could play the point and distribute, but also be a threat from behind ball screens. Whether we drag screens in transition, or just a ball screen in the half court, you didn't have to go over top, or you didn't have to worry about Janae Terry in a ball screen. Now Taylor puts a little bit of pressure on you, and hopefully that opens things up for some of our other athletic wings who can get downhill. And then, hopefully it opens up for Lana and KP inside.
Yeah, you certainly loaded up on the guards and the wings in this transfer class. The second Taylor in the class is Taylor Henderson, coming over from UNC Wilmington. Describe her game to Purdue fans.
Yeah, just someone who plays really, really hard. Elite offensive rebounder from the guard position, and finds a way just to get to the free throw line. I think our leading free throw shooter shot 90 free throws last year, and I think Taylor was well over 140, 150 last year. So just has this like uncanny ability to find herself to the line. And then honestly, what we've learned about her just this summer is just she plays hard. Her motor never stops. She's a really hard box out. And she wants to compete and prove that she belongs here. Her brother plays football at Indiana. Her other brother plays football at Rutgers. And I think she just has this like chip on her shoulder, like, yeah, I belong here in the Big Ten too. And I'm excited for what she can do.
So there's going to be some healthy sibling rivalries now between them. If we've got a football player in Bloomington, we got a basketball player in West Lafayette.
Yeah. Her and I were talking yesterday, and she's their biggest fan, and I think vice versa. So nothing too, but I told her, I was like, you gotta know what this rivalry actually means in the state of Indiana. So I think she's catching on real quick.
Nia Smith, another double-digit scorer from UNC Greensboro, a younger player that you're bringing into the program here. Tell us a little bit about her game.
Yeah, like one of the best athletes, that we saw in the portal. Obviously we've worked hard on getting her stronger, being able to finish at the rim, but like she shot over 40% from the three last year. Was sixth man of the year, freshman of the year, first team, all SoCon. Actually, they made it to the tournament and played USC, and her matchup is Juju, and so she's got a little bit of a taste of what the Big Ten is like. But great kid, works extremely hard, and kind of like this silent assassin that you just like you look up and like, wow, Nia's making a play, and nothing flashy. It's just I'm going to play hard and I'm going to work hard and get it done.
It's a massive transfer haul for you. We're halfway through. We still got three more names here.
Yeah.
Kiki Smith coming over, a Power 4 transfer from Arkansas. Tell us a little bit about what she could look like in a black and gold jersey.
Yeah. So, averaged 10 points a game last year at Arkansas, at the Power 4 level, played in the SEC, knows what it's supposed to look like. Obviously Arkansas didn't have a great year, but Kiki had some success, found some success. And it's just trying to get her confident back to when she was, led the country at the JUCO level in scoring. Took her team to an undefeated, national championship season her freshman year at the JUCO, and I think she's like finding her passion and her love for the game. And if her feet are set, chances are that thing's going in.
An Indiana kid, Sage Stahl, comes over from Indiana State up to Purdue. Tell us a little bit about her game.
Just tough, hard nosed, good motor. We played against Indiana State last year, and I mean, she almost had a double at halftime. Not like super tall, but Dennis Rodman, like offensive rebounding skills, like just has a unique like ability to kind of track things down while it's in the air. And I think she's embraced her role and and understands like, hey, my job is to come in here and set good screens, give us an offensive rebound, be the first one on the floor. And if she can do those things, she's going to find herself some minutes.
Last but not least, your sixth transfer coming in is Tara Day, coming over from St. John's, another higher level conference there. So what does she bring to West Lafayette?
Toughness, just pure toughness, elite athleticism. Pretty much did it all for St. John's. Didn't play this past season, but the season before played over 30 plus minutes a game for them. Always guarded the other team's best player, so trying to lock down Paige Beckers in the Big East. Super competitive. She played the 4 sometimes on the offensive end for St. John. She's a point guard, and so we'll be able to put her on the wing, have her play some point for us. But just a competitive kid that really wants, like Taylor, like all of these kids, just want to prove that they belong here.
Yeah, it feels like a common thread as you've described all 6 of those: athletic and tough. Were those the 2 big things you were searching for in the portal?
100%. We needed to get tougher. We needed to get more elites on in terms of athleticism, and then we needed to get shot makers from the perimeter. So thought we did a good job of kind of rebuilding and reshaping our roster. Obviously we got a long way to go, but I think the intangibles are there right now, and we just got to find a way to put ourselves in the best position to find success.
You also talk about a lot of these players maybe having a chip on their shoulder, trying to prove something up at the Big Ten level. You've made that transition as a coach from Marion up to Purdue. What is that like as a player, making that jump from maybe these smaller, the non-P4 schools up to Purdue, and what will make these ladies ready for that jump this season?
I think it's just like what we said, like their athleticism, but their competitiveness, their toughness, just really diving into like being hard to beat, right? Like, we're probably never going to be the most talented team, not going to have the highest star power. But if we can be a team that, somebody looks at their schedule like, oh man, we got to play Purdue, like, oh, and then the next day, like, yeah, we played Purdue, we're sore, we feel it. Yep. Really kind of bringing that toughness back to our program to kind of help us find success again.
You've got some freshmen in this class as well that bring in a lot of talent, including a top 100 freshman in Avery Gordon. How quickly do you see these freshmen getting acclimated in the program?
Yeah, I mean, Ave's got a chance. For 6'7", she moves better than you think. She's got great soft hands, great footwork in the post. I mean, obviously understanding the pace of play, shot clocks, ball screen coverage is all going to be new. But for her, like the best thing is like Lana and KP were in her shoes last year, and so they've got 2 really good leaders that just went through it last year. And then Ave is like the consummate team player. Like she's just, what can I do to help us win? And she has found herself in shape and gonna have an opportunity to help us win.
I think you kind of answered this a little bit just a minute ago, talking about how tough you want the team to be. But for Purdue fans for 2025-26, what should they expect stylistically from your team to see on the floor this year?
Yeah, this is probably by far the deepest team I've had since I've been here. So I know every year teams say like, oh, we got to run, we got to get out in transition. But we want to play all 94 feet. We've got to set the tone on the defensive end. And because we're so deep, it's going to allow us opportunities. It's going to give us a little bit more of an edge than what we've had, that we can play all 94 feet on the defensive end and then look to push in transition. Obviously want to take good shots, but you can't rebound a turnover. So, trying to get the ball up on the rim. The year we went to the tournament, we shot a lot of threes. I can see that, I can see us shooting the three ball quite a bit more than what we have in the past. But I think that's it. Like, I can't preach it enough. Like, just be tough, right? Like, just pure toughness. We've got to be the first one on the floor. We've got to be willing to sacrifice our body and take charges. We've got to be elite on the rebounding on both ends of the floor. And then we got to take care of the basketball and give ourselves a chance. So.
One of my favorite things, and I love the game notes that your sports information director, Ian, puts together before each game, but he always has something in there, something along the lines of, you can't turn the ball over if you get a shot up. So that's always been a philosophy, I think, of the game notes since you took over, is let's get shots up because we can't turn the ball over. And you just said it, you can't rebound a turnover. So is that kind of the message? Is we don't want to play too fast, but we do want to get up and down the floor.
Yeah, I mean, you're never going to be more open than the first opportunity you get to shoot it, right? If you don't take your shot, then you're not doing your job for our ball club. If you don't shoot it, you put the ball on the floor, chances are you're not going to be open again, right? Like, that's just kind of the way that the game is. Defenses are too good. These coaches are too good. They're going to, these players are too good defensively. When we get an opportunity, we've got to shoot it before we turn it over.
That's what I love, that part of the game notes. There's a lot going on, obviously, in the college landscape, not just basketball, but with the NIL, the transfer portal. But the last couple coaches we've had on the show, and I think it started with Robin Freilich talking about how, look, there's a lot going on, but there's still a lot of good in coaching. And the reason that you guys got into coaching, the good parts of that are still there. Do you agree with that sentiment? And if so, what are those parts that you really love about coaching?
No, Robin's 100% spot on. Obviously, the landscape has changed drastically. Even in the last 2 or 3 years, it's changed quite a bit. But a couple weekends ago, I'm going to Cass Harden's wedding, and she's on that tournament team, and she's getting married to a practice player. And I'm at the wedding, and I see former players there. Like, the relationship piece that we all got in, like, this is why we did it, right? We get opportunity to mentor, help young women find their way in life. And then you get a call to go to a wedding, right? Or, hey, coach, I'm having a child, or some other significant part of their adult life is happening and they want to include you. That's why we do it. And the opportunity to see some players, first of all, the one walk down the aisle with their new husband, and then the other ones who were teammates that I coached. That's why we did it. Like, that's the best part of coaching, and that will never change.
That's awesome. Well, I'm curious your approach to this landscape with NIL, with the transfer portal. Have you learned as you've gone through the last couple of seasons? Have you had to adapt your strategy as everything just seems to change each and every offseason?
Oh yeah, it's constantly evolving, and if you're not willing to evolve or change or pivot, you're gonna be left in the dust. I think when I first took over, I had this idea of how I wanted it to go, how I envisioned it. And that's not where we're at. Like, that's not our landscape. Coach Painter on the men's side is a little bit different than us, right? His culture is set. His, guys crawling to come and play for Matt Painter and wear black and gold. And, we're chasing that, but really trying to hone in on, like, creating that culture of, like, we want to get kids who want to be here and graduate from here and call us to go to their weddings. It's always been the Purdue way, and I can't envision that changing. But at the same time, like, there's been a couple pivots, and obviously we've got a team full of some transfer kids. But our idea and our hope and wish is that at the end of the year, the ones with eligibility, they're wearing black and gold next year again, and we can keep building on this thing.
How much do you look across the way at what Matt Painter is doing and try and maybe take some notes, see what's working for a team that was in the national championship not too long ago? Yeah,
honestly, you go down to a practice. There's and watch Matt coach. You learn something every single day. It's not just him. His assistants are great. His ops, like, they're always willing to kind of, like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're thinking. They come in and watch our practices, their workouts or whatever. They're just a great group of guys that really have, you know, they want us to succeed, right? Like, and that's kind of, how Purdue is and whatnot. But, there's not a lot of coaches, if any, better than Matt Painter. And any chance he allows me to pick his brain, I'm going to take advantage of that.
It's always cool when the two teams work like that in harmony, when one team wants to see the other, because it's going to help both sides if the
Right.
others are
Right.
successful, certainly. Speaking of two different basketball teams, you and I obviously represent two different sides of a Hoosier State rivalry here. I think, and I don't know, maybe I'm misremembering, but I feel like there was 2 years ago or something like that where I saw a quote from you that says, I'm not sure we can call it a rivalry right now because they keep beating our you-know-whats. So how do you
I never said that.
how do you reestablish yourselves in this? Like, it's obvious it means a lot. You and I are both Indiana people.
For sure.
We know what this means. How do you establish this rivalry in an era where there's so many transfers, so it may not mean as much to these kids who aren't from Indiana? So how do you bring that to Purdue?
Yeah, that's funny because Kelly Kamara and I were talking about this the other day. Like, do you think our kids understand what this means? But to clarify, I actually somebody sent me that quote and I sent it to Ian. I was like, Ian, did I say this? Like, sometimes,
I fell for clickbait. Gosh dang it! Oh,
and he was like, KG, I never remember. Like, I don't remember you saying that, but like, I mean,
we're setting it right now. She never said that. That was clickbait.
I mean, maybe I say a lot of things sometimes. I'm like, well, what did I even say there? What did I even mean? But yeah, I mean, they have been kicking our butt. That's not false by any means. But like, talk about the rivalry. Like, I think, like, obviously playing here, my associate head coach Kelly Kamara played here. Like, we have poured it into them in a short amount of time. I remember Abby Ellis, like, the first year, she's like, man, I didn't get it. But then she's like, I get it. I get it now. And I had a meeting with Madison Layden yesterday, and we were talking. I asked her the question, like, do our kids understand? And she said that they get enough, like, hate DMs or messages on their TikTok videos that they've already caught on that IU folks do not like us Purdue folks and vice versa. So I don't think we had to say a whole lot. I think that they've learned through social media and the availability of social media for other people to reach out to them. The hate has already come their way.
All you have to do if you don't understand the rivalry is be at one of the games. And if you're on the Purdue side, you go to Assembly Hall. If you're on the Indiana side, you go to Mackey, and you realize what
it's a real
this
thing.
Means. Absolutely.
And honestly, it's not like that anywhere else. Like, I know people say Duke, Carolina. Like, I don't think that anything rivals what Purdue, Indiana, and maybe, obviously, maybe I'm biased playing here and being from the state of Indiana. I'm not so sure anything can match this.
I'm with you. I think it's somehow still an underrated rivalry nationally, but I think the people in our state certainly understand what it means.
Absolutely.
Big Ten wise, you were a part of this transition here, adding 4 schools over from the West Coast. How did you feel like that changed the Big Ten? Did you change the way you had to play, the way you had to prepare? How did you guys handle that West Coast trip, all that stuff of last season?
Yeah. I don't know. I think when the news comes that the 4 teams are obviously those schools are like, they're bigger, right? USC, like in height, right? So this trying to get bigger and longer. At certain spots on the court that changed in terms of recruiting. You look at USC, UCLA, Oregon, like their rosters, they're tall, right? Like they're long, they're tall. And I mean, UCLA, USC, they came in here and found success immediately. So it's our job here on this side of the country that we've got to pick it back up. But the travel is a travel, and we don't have to do it nearly as much as they do, thankfully, because don't love flying. Our trip to Washington and Oregon last year was awful.
I heard some stories. Yeah.
It was awful, but that stuff's out of our hands, right? But these kids are 18 to 22 years old, and no matter what you tell them to play, what time, the ball's going up, we've got to figure it out. So this year we go to LA, and it is what it is. And like I said, I'm glad that we don't have to do it as often as they have to do it.
I believe that means you've played everywhere in the Big Ten but LA in your tenure. Is that correct?
We've played UCLA a couple of years ago in a non-conference game, but we've not played USC yet.
So where have been some of your favorite places to coach at across the country? Obviously, Mackey Arena, I know, is number one 100%. For you.
Yeah.
Some of the coaches we've had on the pod have taken the easy out and just said their home stadium, which I do love Mackey, and it's an awesome atmosphere. Is there anywhere else that you've walked in, you're like, this is really cool that I'm getting to coach here?
Obviously Assembly Hall is cool just because of the rivalry and the history. I grew up on the south side of Indianapolis. My first game, my dad took me to watch, Bob Knight coach Damon Bailey's team. That was pretty cool the first time. Now I hate it because there's no place to walk on the sideline.
Nope.
I don't like the barn in Minnesota because you're up on an island all by yourself, and I don't want any attention on me.
Boy, this is 2 episodes after Dawn was given it the full sell. She was like, "We love this is the place," and here we go. We're getting barn slander.
It's terrible. Just you're just on an island all by yourself, and it's I just want to talk to my staff or whatnot. I don't know. I loved playing at Michigan State. I thought the Breslin Center was really, really cool. And then actually going out to UCLA last year. Just John Wooden being from our state, playing here at Purdue, and all the history there at Pauley Pavilion was pretty special. But yeah, I would probably say those ones stick out the most.
When you were a player, were you undefeated against Indiana? Is that correct?
No, we lost one time. I know. My junior year.
You don't forget those things, do you?
So my junior year, senior day, we lost. And so Sharon Versup, who coached me my senior year, was the Indiana coach. And then we end up playing Indiana in the Big Ten tournament that same year. And I made sure that wasn't going to happen. I'm pretty sure we tried to run up the score on that one. So
I was going to say I was going to ask if there's any memories as a player from that rivalry, but it sounds like you got one right there. That Big Ten tournament.
It's definitely that one. I remember they were kind of on the bubble of making the tournament. Obviously the Big Ten tournament we're playing the next day, so coach kind of takes our starters out, and then Indiana's still pressing our second and third unit and late in the game, and I remember making eye contact with Coach Curry, and I was like, "Can we go back in?" And she was like, and she sent us all 5 to the scores table, and we got a couple quick buckets, and message was sent. We came back to the bench.
Did you make sure that Coach Versup knew about that once she took over?
I think we had a couple conversations about it my senior year, and she made the funny statement. She used different words, but she's like, "Yeah, my butt hurt for a month. I couldn't sit down after taking that meeting." So,
man.
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure that didn't happen. So.
It's a special rivalry, and I'm glad among all the changes that have happened that it continues to happen twice a year as it should, with that barn burner trophy always on the line. Coach, thanks so much for spending almost half an hour with us here. This has been wonderful. We're looking forward to seeing Purdue this season, and best of luck this year.
Yeah, thanks, Austin. Thanks for having me.
That was Katie Gearlds joining us here on the podcast. A reminder, you can check out all our stuff on the Back Home Network YouTube channel, available on Apple and Spotify podcasts as well. Next week with more preview episodes. Until then, I'm off surrender. Thanks to Katie Gearlds for joining us. We'll talk to you guys next week.